Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 3 of Aviation Future Week. Let's start off with a quick welcoming video. Thank you.
What begins as a small seed of an idea can grow into a mighty transformation. We started small and grew to become one of the world's largest and most successful international airlines. Hand in hand with a city that sees no limits, together we never stop pushing at the edges of possibility. Knowing the key to a better future is investment in the best technology. That hasn't changed. Our vision of the future is just as ambitious as it always was. We're striding into a new era of aviation. As passenger demand continues to rise, we can't be held back. We must invest in cutting-edge technology today to make Dubai the global aviation hub of tomorrow. We must ask ourselves, how can we use the latest technology to meet demand and expectations and create the best passenger experience? How can we create intelligent cargo systems that keep the world moving? And how can we use the huge advances in AI to transform the way we work? We're embracing the digital revolution to position Dubai as the world's best connection hub and leisure travel destination, creating an inspiring vision for the future of aviation. We believe the possibilities are endless.
Okay, this is it. So, as some more people are getting seated, getting ready for our first keynote, let us tell you what's happened over the last couple of days. Yesterday, we delved into the future of freight demand and logistics centers, discussing how technology such as AI, IoT, and predictive analytics is transforming the supply chain. We also explored the role of sustainable practices in logistics and how MROs are adapting to a post-COVID world, focusing on efficiency and overcoming supply chain disruptions. Today, we're going to turn our attention to workforce, the workforce of the future, and how emerging technologies will shape the way that we will work in aviation. Our first panel will discuss how customer feedback and perception data can be leveraged with modern data science and AI to improve the customer experience. From analyzing social media data to understanding customer sentiment, we'll explore the vast potential of these insights to enhance airline operations. A little bit later on today, we're going to dive into the exciting fusion of extended reality and generative AI, and how this combination is set to, quite simply, revolutionize aviation workflows. We're going to hear from some industry experts about how these technologies are transforming employee training, customer engagement, and even workforce wellness. It's an exciting day ahead. My name is Katie Overy, and I'm honored to be your MC once again. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start with our first keynote of the day, and I'm so happy it is a packed room for it. Please welcome the Chief Digital Officer of Etihad Airways. Welcome, Mr. Frank Meyer.
Thank you, Katie, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to open the third day of this event, of the Aviation Future Week, with maybe a couple of thoughts from my end around what we're doing at Etihad and how technology is helping to shape the way we operate. The title of this presentation is How to Use Advanced Technology Can Improve Customer Experience and Operational Efficiency. It's a very loaded title, it's a very complex title, and of course I will be talking about AI. And most of the pictures in this presentation are I have used AI to generate the pictures. And maybe just to start with, this picture I created was an attempt to tell the AI, create an A380 flying over Dubai, create an A380 from Etihad flying over Dubai. And that's what you get these days from AI. It's an A380, it's Etihad. I'm not sure it's Dubai, and I'm not sure the tail is really Etihad. Actually, some of the suggestions I got from the AI had an Emirates tail on it. This is seriously what happened. So this is the best, the closest. But I think it's a good start just to illustrate the challenges that we're facing when we talk about advanced technology these days. It's quite advanced, but maybe not quite there yet. So I'll be using this a little bit on and off. So as I started to think about this presentation and what to talk about, I started to think a little bit, you know, these days everyone wants to talk about AI, Gen AI. I've been in the industry and in technology almost 30 years now. It's crazy, that feels like forever. And through these 30 years, there have always been different waves of different technologies that were important to talk. I started in '96 working for Swissair and Swiss Cargo, very busy with PSS, next generation cargo, demand management, forecasting, data warehousing. Then 2001, when Swissair became Swiss and was integrated later into the Lufthansa Group, we talked a lot around big data platform. Then we had again PSS, alliance integration, and software development. Then I moved out of the airline industry into a company called Adecco. We talked about cloud computing, mobile apps. So this was 2008, roughly, advanced analytics. And then something I only learned to say in about 2013, ubiquitous computing. It's a very strange word. And later, when I joined Emirates in 2016, we were already talking a lot around AI, machine learning, marketplaces, NDC, and so on and so forth. The only reason why I mentioned that, because that's been kind of like what happened during my career, and there's a lot more, but these are just examples. So let's call this the left side of this slide. When I now try to reflect, what are we doing today? What am I doing with my team today? Basically, it's all of the left side and more. So we have added a lot more technology. But at the end of the day, we are also still busy implementing many things that go back many years. So these days we talk about, I joined in 2019 in Etihad. Nowadays we talk about around digital travel documents. We still talk about PSS. We just made a PSS migration last year. I won't read out all of these things. But I'm just happy that the word ubiquitous is not there anymore because it's not used much anymore. Also, I think blockchain, I am not seeing we do much, at least not in Etihad. This hype has gone down a little bit in the airline as far as I can tell. Maybe your experience may be different. But these are all things that we're taking care of. All of you will be familiar with these topics. In my presentation today, I want to talk a little bit more around machine learning applied, AI, Gen AI, and offer order, because I think these are very important topics. But in sum, what we can basically say to start with, or my reflection is, technology development goes really fast. It goes without saying. There's a lot of stuff that's coming on the market all the time. But when I look into the airline adoption, you know, by the way, only AI can do this. Now you can tell the AI to put the snail on an aircraft, and it does it. It's amazing. But I think the airline adoption is quite slow in terms of technology generally. And I want to talk about some of the reasons what I believe has contributed to that a little bit later into the presentation. So AI brings a whole new world of opportunities. It goes without saying. Here are two examples that we are currently working on in Etihad. These are not easy or easy cases at all. The first one we're talking about here is to try to establish an AI-based conversational chatbot that allows the customers to make bookings. That's a very challenging use case for AI because normally the booking process is a sequential way. And that's why all our booking engines still look the same like 30 years ago, because they follow the exact pattern how a PNR needs to be created. Now, if you use natural, that whole order will be changed, and therefore it's actually a big challenge. Another challenge that we are facing, where most airlines still struggle with, certainly we do, I admit that clearly, is when we deal with customer complaints or with claims. From the moment we receive a claim until the claim's been settled and paid out, the amount of time is normally not within the expectations of the customer. So we're trying to use AI to cut this down to as low as 48 hours from the moment you receive the claim until the claim is actually settled. That's the ambition, but these are not easy cases. I'll talk a little bit more about other cases that we're working on a little bit later. So, based on a survey that was done by CETA in 2024, not surprisingly, you will see that pretty much all airports and all airlines are investing into AI, either now or within the next 2 years. That's not a surprise to anyone, I'm absolutely sure. But what is interesting, in that same survey, the question was also, what are your expectations with the outcome on AI? And there the picture looks a little bit different. Only 12% of the CIOs say that they believe that there is going to be a benefit in the short term from deploying these technologies, which I think is a good reflection to show that at this stage, at least, especially for us in the airline industry, there is a lot of ideas, there is a lot we want to do, but we do not think immediately it will have a return. Or in other words, there's a lot of complexity we have to deal with. And I think we are seeing that as well in Etihad. Talking about Etihad a little bit more, what we are doing, so I'll give a little bit of an insight, some of the cases we are currently working on. Let's start with the booking process. So there is a huge opportunity in the booking process, obviously, to use AI to create personalized bundles, as an example, so that we are not only bundling as a static, or we're offering ancillaries in a static fashion, we make them contextual. Pricing the bundle individually, or the ancillary, or even a bigger bundle, is a big topic that we're also working on. Customer segmentation, chat, voice booking, I already spoke about that. There's a huge opportunity, especially for the next generation of younger people who maybe want to book more through their usual social media. Again, dynamic pricing, that's the ancillary part of it. We're doing a lot on that. Next best action is an idea that also goes into personalizing the flow of the booking, anomalies detection, personal campaigns, and then a lot of contact center assistance. So if I look just for the booking process, what we are currently doing and where we're standing, then you can see most of these projects at this stage at Etihad are, let me say, in development. They're not yet at a stage where we can really scale them. So that means they're either in software development or in a POC phase. Some of these ideas are actually more even in a conceptual phase, but in some, these are examples on the booking. We're doing quite a bit on that front. If we go to the airport, there are obviously technologies that we're all familiar with, like biometrics. Then there is this a little bit more complex case about trying to optimize how assets are being used and knowing exactly where are the assets, pushback trucks, catering trucks, or whatever we have there, to know exactly how does that best get optimized. So if we have a breakdown in one place, to know exactly which vehicle is best organized. A case that is not new, but I think now with the newer technology, there's a lot of opportunity to do that. We're working closely with the Abu Dhabi airport on this one. Then augmented reality. So we have an app where you can walk through the airport and use it as a virtual reality. We're using virtual reality also in cabin crew training these days. Then dynamic resource planning, dynamic stand planning, decision support, and digital travel credentials. It's great to see the biometric gates here as well in the exhibition, especially in Abu Dhabi. I would like to point out that the biometric corridor is really amazing. You can go through it without passport, without any e-ticket, if you are locally departing. So it's really great, but there's a lot more if you want to do this on an international basis, and if you want to have also transit passengers, if you want to make sure that people who join from abroad and travel on in Abu Dhabi or anywhere else have their documents ready. So we're working with some partners on the idea of the digital travel credentials. So if we now look into where we stand with this, there is quite a few things that are development. There is a lot in concept phase, and biometrics is really something we have already rolled out, as well as it is the case in Dubai. If we go into the flight, area, in Etihad, we do quite a lot of work there as well, especially around dynamic flight planning. So the idea here is that after the initial flight plan has been generated, that during the flight, even en route, the flight plan is updated and the captain gets new advice in real time into the cockpit about altitude, or certain options where he can adjust within the frame that is available. There is interesting technology on the market now, which we are testing at the moment. Then, in the same context, a smart advisor of climb, angle of attack, altitude cruise, and descent is something that we are in POC right now. Contrails avoidance, so something from the sustainability side of things. Contrails are not good for the environment if they form clouds. So by adjusting the flight altitude, you can optimize the way we fly. That's something that we already have rolled out. And where we're doing quite a lot now is the ChatGPT type of solutions to give to our crews, to our ground staff, so that they can deal with their complex policies and regulations in a much easier way. At the moment, it's very much, how can I say, search-oriented, but the next phase would be then to have this transaction-oriented. And then we have a big topic. The last bullet point on this slide is around disruption management. Disruption management is still a big pain point for most airlines. And we are also working on the automated recovery, the automated customer interaction, and rebooking process in case of disruption. So as I said, again, a bit of a mixed picture, what we're doing. And finally, in the back office, a few things to call out. We are doing at Etihad a lot, really a lot, on robotics process automation already for several years. We have several Scrum teams established, which do nothing else than going division, department, what can we automate, what can we automate, what can we automate? And it's a huge success. Really, we find still a big backlog of things that can be automated. CRM, we do a lot, customer sentiments. Many of these things will probably not be a surprise to you, but I also want to call out, lastly on that slide, the cybersecurity side. We're doing quite a bit in the way we are detecting threats and the way we're dealing and categorizing threats on the cybersecurity side. And yeah. So in sum, as I was trying to start with, I think it's a big topic. A lot is in a POC or in a development phase, and a couple of things we have been able to scale. But I think most of these things that I'm showing here are, let me say, internal projects we are doing, sometimes with partners, but a lot of it is also done internally. We should not forget, and I think it's very important, there is a massive industry building around AI. So this picture here is from a website called AI Ecosystems. And as you can see, this is just a snapshot, I guess it's changing every day, but there are more than 50,000 companies that build AI solutions. So I think the question is here a little bit as well, how much of their capability can we tap into, and how much of it do we need to build in-house? I would like to show you one very interesting example where I think surprisingly things are really, I'm just really surprised how this works. Let me say it that way. We have announced our traffic statistics for September 3 days ago, on the 14th of October. So that's when we announced that. We've now said, okay, we are in a new generation. People don't like to read press releases so much. So how can we turn this into something more interesting? So we created a podcast. I would like to just listen to that podcast for maybe 1 minute, very briefly.
So today we're diving into something that might seem a little, well, let's just say dry at first glance. A press release from Etihad Airways. You know, the kind of thing you might normally just skim over. But trust me on this one, because buried within these traffic statistics is actually a really interesting story about where Etihad's headed, and maybe even a peek into the future of air travel as a whole. Luckily, I've got just the person to help us break it all down. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Let's see what we can dig up.
Okay, so first impression, just looking at the numbers, Etihad had a pretty impressive September. We're talking 1.6 million passengers.
Wow.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, that's like filling every single seat at Wembley Stadium.
Oh, wow.
Almost 20 times over, and all in just 1 month.
In 1 month, that is impressive.
And it doesn't look like a fluke either, because they're also reporting an 88% load factor, which, and maybe you can help me out here because I'm not exactly fluent in airline, but I'm assuming that's a good thing, right?
Oh, yeah. 88% load factor is huge. That basically means 88% of all their available seats were filled with paying passengers.
Got it. Okay.
And that's really the name of the game for airlines, right? Because that efficiency translates directly into profitability. Okay. Airlines don't make money when those planes are flying around half empty.
Yeah.
They make money when those planes are full.
Right. Full planes, happy airlines. Makes sense.
I'll save you from the rest. It's good news. This podcast was generated in 30 seconds using AI. There was no human involved in any shape or form. All you need to do is to take the press release, throw it into the tool. It's a public tool from Google, Notebook LM, and the podcast is generated. You can mix-match several press releases, and then these guys will talk about other things that we have done. The podcast gets a little bit longer. But if you think about it, you know, in 30 seconds, there is a podcast generated now, which is from a consumption standpoint completely different. And if you think about training, cabin crew training, or other trainings for maybe people who don't like to read paper all the time, you can create a lot of different ideas with free tools on the back of that. It is, in my view, absolutely fascinating. Maybe it's still not perfect, but we have to keep in mind, this is version 1 of the release of what Google comes up, and I think it's really, really impressive. But as I said, there are challenges in scaling many of these technologies, so maybe let's just talk about a few challenges that we have in the airline industry when scaling. I think the biggest challenge that I see is always our technology landscape. It is really complex and often also, I could say, a little bit fragile, as we use a lot of technology. And now we need to integrate an additional layer with AI, which we have a lot of options where we put the AI, which solutions we take. So it's really slowing down the way of adopting it and scaling it. The other problem is the data. Depending on the use case we're talking about, the data may be hidden somewhere in a legacy platform, in a legacy system. It may not be easy consumable, or the data that we have a great use case for is not good enough. We have had several use cases in Etihad where we had to first generate the data after we had the idea. Generating the data, for instance, by putting a script on our website and our apps to collect more information so that the machine learning can kick in. So the availability of data is still a big challenge. Then we should not underestimate AI is also quite expensive. It is not only expensive to get the solution, the storage, the compute, it's also expensive to get the right people. And without the right people, it's not possible to develop this very well. So altogether, as you have seen as well, the skepticism for many of the CIOs, it's understandable because at the moment, you can get maybe POCs quite easy, but to scale it can be quite expensive, quite fast. Fourth point, there's customer concerns. Many people are not happy that their information is used, don't give consent, or they have different levels of trust whether the information is held by a government organization, by an airline, a semi-government, or by a private organization. So we're seeing pushback as well from the customer side, depending on the use case. Fifth, of course, no surprise, it's not only the regulatory environment, I think it's also internal policies. Policies that we have built over the years to make sure that we operate in a very controlled way and in a very safe way. And now comes AI, which has a certain uncertainty in the way it predicts. That creates challenges. And I think that leads to the last point, probably the most difficult to solve, is the change management. We had a presentation from Google in Etihad about 2 days ago. And when you listen to Google and you talk about, or when they talk about how they're operating as an organization, how they communicate with each other, how they're building their offices, how they're giving time to the people, I think, airlines, to be fair, are quite different. It's a different beast. I think the change to create the culture of innovation, to create a culture of using the solutions, trusting the solution, is not easy when you're coming from an environment where everything has to be very, very controlled and foreseeable. So these are 6 things. I think I will close with addressing a few of those, but before going there, I want to talk the last subject. One of my favorite subjects is about retailing, modern retailing. Those that are airlines, and I think there's many, many airline colleagues here in the room, we all know what we're talking about. We would like to sell more. We would like to sell more. We would like to sell everything. I think we've done a pretty good job in the last, whatever years, 30 years, we can say, in leveraging the capability of the legacy technology. And in this picture, just to illustrate where this leads is, I think we're all pretty good in how we're selling now our airline product. But there's a lot of shortfalls. There's a lot of things we can't sell today. Not the least, we can't sell very easily third-party products. We can't sell very easily ancillaries of other airlines, and other airlines can't sell our ancillaries very easy. We can't sell hotels, cars, you name it. All these limitations we have because of our legacy technology. Now, if we want to sell all these things, there is a concept, most of you will be familiar with about it, offer and order, service and deliver. So technology-wise and conceptually, it is clear how the problem can be solved. And I think that's a huge step. I remember when I joined Emirates in 2016, there was no supplier on the market that had any offer-order system ready for usage. So hence we've had the idea of building our own. But these days, the market has changed. The market is about to change, at least. There are now partners, technology companies, who have done serious investments into the capability of offer-order. The only problem that we have now is how are we going to use it? How are we going to adopt it? And it's not going to be beautiful. It's going to be quite ugly. Because the way it's going to work, we will have a coexistence of the legacy world with the offer and order world, which is going to be integrated through something, let's call it a bridge or an integration layer or whatever, ESB, you can call it whatever you like it, but at the end of the day, it means the 2 layers have to be consistent with each other, and they have to coexist. So the already high complexity will further increase because we're going to introduce at some point capability from the offer-order side, which in the long run is the right thing to do, but in the short term will create a lot more complexity and headaches. And then on top of it, AI. So the world of the technology world in the next years, from an airline standpoint, is going to be quite challenging. What can we do? Lastly, so few thoughts of what we can do to overcome these things. So first of all, I think when it comes to AI, I think it's very important to select the right use case. There's many use cases. We have also closed many cases where we invested and we realized it's not working well. We had, for instance, the idea to use an AI, how to build pallets, because we realized the way that pallets in cargo are built is not very optimal. You lose a lot of space. So conceptually and logically, it's a problem that can be solved. We invested quite a lot together with a partner into that, but in the end, we came to the conclusion it's too theoretical. In practice, it's not working. But the selection of the right use case is really important, as is the selection of the right skills and partners. Obviously, I believe it's important to have internal capabilities as well as working with the right partners. It's not a black and white approach. Choose the right technology. Again, there are a lot of different options in terms of technology. You saw that there are 50,000 companies out there who all want to work with us. And then there are a couple big players in the market. So it's very important what we choose because it will tell us what we can do and what we can't do. And lastly, the right culture. This is, as I said, probably the most difficult one. We need to talk about the successes. We need to create confidence in the solutions. We need to accept that things can go wrong. And in my view, I keep hearing, let's reduce complexity. Complexity cannot be reduced. Complexity can only be managed. And therefore, as you see, I think the complexity is going to increase further. Over 30 years, we brought in more technology. In the next 10 years, we'll bring even more. So the question is, how do we manage that? We cannot reduce it. But there are ways to manage it. I'm really convinced about that. So that brings me a little bit to the end of my initial thoughts for the opening of the day 3. Lastly, I've tried to do the AI again. So I've asked Microsoft designer again to create me an AI picture with what therefore the future could look like. And, you know, I don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, of course, I do believe there is huge opportunities for us, for the airline industry. I know we're all on it. And it's great to have conferences like this where we share experiences and where we exchange views. I wish everyone a great rest of the conference. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can leave the clicker there. You're all good. I know you're back on in a minute. Thank you so much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Frank Meyer, absolute honour. Right, don't move a muscle. Our next panel are just getting all set up and we'll be back in about 2 minutes' time for the next panel. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to move on to the first panel of the day. So if I could ask you to make your way back into the auditorium, take your seats. I love the fact our VIPs just rushed as well to get back into their seats. Right, ladies and gentlemen, the first panel of the day. We're going to be discussing leveraging automated feedback to transform customer experience. With that, I would like you to please welcome our panelists to the stage. First up, we have Divisional Senior Vice President of Emirates Skywards, Dr. Najib Ben Kheda. Welcome back to the stage, the Chief Digital Officer of Etihad Airways, Frank Meyer. The Chief Executive Officer of VisionBox, Miguel Leitman. The Assistant Professor from Hamad bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, Dr. Niels Lucas. And this morning, your moderator is the Senior Vice President of Enterprise Analytics from Emirates Airlines, Dr. Dirk Jonknickel. A quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not at the stage and you are in the foyer area, please do keep conversation to a minimum of respect for the panel. Thank you so much.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah. So let's get started. It's a little bit of an introduction maybe from my side. When talking about customer experience and driving and improving it with data, at least in my mind, I usually distinguish between what I would call perception data, what customers really perceive in the end, what matters in terms of customer experience, and then the hard reality of what processes really tell us. And we need to collect such data typically along the customer journey from start to finish. This is usually the challenge of how that works. And then you can use such data, of course, to either directly improve some customer experience elements, services, business processes, or you can apply, as we already heard from Frank just before, machine learning, AI, and more sophisticated capabilities to influence and directly improve customer experience in a much more targeted, personalized way. So therefore, the first question for you, Frank, right after your keynote presentation, could you give us a little bit more detail, in particular regarding perception or sentiment data you're capturing or computing in Etihad, and how you actually use that and make it useful for an improvement of customer experience?
Yes, sure. Can you hear me? Or do I need to talk here? Talk here? Yeah. Okay, I have to talk here now. Yes, the most important perception data that we get, as probably it is no different for most other airlines, is the NPS survey. The NPS survey is very, very important for us. We have a very detailed survey. We have different surveys. We have onboard survey, but the most important is the post-flight NPS survey. We get a lot of data from that survey. We get it on each touch point. We get it for all the demographics. We know the point of departure. So we know exactly how our product is perceived by the passengers throughout the journey. So it's very, very important data. And what we are doing with it is we get it refreshed every week, but every second week we have a meeting together with the CEO where we discuss the data and we discuss the actions from the previous meetings. And if you look into the product of Etihad, I can with confidence say all the changes that we have done in the last 3, 4, 5 years maybe, but particularly in the last 2 years, are the result of the NPS survey. So when we hear the food is not good, when we see the lounge is not good, when we see there's an issue with check-in, when we see there is a problem with the cabin, all of it is taken into account for our design of the product. That's one element. The second element I want to briefly touch on is we receive complaints and claims. We use a little AI tool to understand the sentiment of the claim, because we believe the sentiment is important in the way you respond to a passenger. So we use it to use the right tone in the answer and also to consider, what we're really doing. So we have several domains, but I think for us, again, the most important is the NPS survey, which drives pretty much everything in our product design.
Yeah, thanks. Follow-up question maybe for you, Miguel, because I mean, VisionBox, from what I understand, is very, very heavily involved in providing biometric solutions, capturing biometric data, and then using this in order to kind of streamline and influence customer journeys. So could you share with us what kind of data is usually being collected through your systems, your tools, effectively, like I mean, biometric gates, for instance, and how that is being used to streamline and make customer journeys more seamless?
Okay, well, first of all, good morning, and thank you very much on behalf of VisionBox and Amadeus to be invited from Emirates to participate in this event and to discuss in this panel session the most exciting contents and the most exciting challenges that will be big game changers in the aviation industry, which is machine learning and artificial intelligence. We have been working with Emirates since 2015 in innovation. It results in having today in Terminal 3 Dubai Airport implemented automated biometric border control, as well as in for the Emirates passenger experiences, a very streamlined, seamless solution between check-in, border control, lounge access, and boarding based on biometrics, based on face matching. So first of all, thank you very much. If you talk about AI, or if you want to distinguish between AI and machine learning, it depends which kind of information you're dealing with. In the last years, we have been dealing with structured information, meaning all information that you can handle and have access to even outside of the airport, and optimize it in a way that you can facilitate the experience of the passenger moving from one destination to the other, starting with, for example, the booking. How much information can you access by being part of the booking process? And this is where Amadeus, which recently acquired VisionBox, gives us the leverage to have access to passenger and passenger data at a very early stage. It is structured data. It allows you to profile passengers. It allows you to optimize the way you want to process these passengers in his journey. Profiling is a very important topic. Profiling is being done by border control entities. A lot of passengers are being profiled and checkboxed even before they enter Dubai, for example. They can be cleared. Those passengers would be able to just move through the airport without even being checked. So how do you have access to that? How do you do that? And this is where biometrics starts to come in play. Biometrics is used in different ways. It can be face, it can be iris, it can be fingerprints. Mainstream today on a worldwide basis is using facial. Facial is very convenient. It doesn't need the contribution of the user that is being enrolled or checked at this moment. You can capture the faces from different angles of the same person. The outcome of that capture is a token. It is a mathematical representation of your face, of your picture, and that token is always the same however you capture that face. And that face can be used for identification, which is the case of the immigration, but it can also be used as a password to have access to diversity of databases. In aviation, it is the databases or the data sets of the different stakeholders, right? Normally in aviation, airlines, airports, border entities, they are meant to work together, but that's not an easy job. As we all know, it might be one of the biggest hurdles in aviation to bring airlines and airports operations and even immigration entities, police authorities to collaborate, right? For the police, the best border is the closed one, right? For an airline or an airport operation, the best border is a completely open one. You need to find the right operating point in between. And how do you do that? So you do that by mixing, having access to all of this data, being able to profile, being able to associate the passengers to their specific checkpoints, And when he passes through a specific checkpoint, you have that clarification already done. You only have to identify him through his token. You tick the box and the passenger can walk through. The way you do it, it can be more or less seamless, it can be more or less efficient, and that's all about technology, that's all about artificial intelligence and machine learning. You have, in some cases where you do not have access to that data, you have to do it on that specific touch point. We check an immensity of travel documents, we check an immensity of visas. We need to check them, we need to authenticate them, we need to certify them in the moment the passenger walks through that touch point, in the check-in process, in the boarding process, in the border control process. The way you do it, the way you implemented all the machine learning process that is behind it makes that operating point more or less efficient. And ultimately, last but not least, you want to be safe, you want to be secure. It's about being able to detect attacks. It's being able to detect spoofing, anti-spoofing mechanisms, tailgating. All of those topics today combined in a machine learning process or artificial intelligence if you want to replace the entities monitoring or hosting those touch points. It's all about what we do. And we have the latest solution, the latest development that we did together with Emirates in the last years. We have it in this exhibition. So very happy to invite everybody to walk through Emirates booth and our booth outside in the showroom and explain you how this is materialized in a very seamless corridor, gateless corridor, to be a step ahead of Etihad. There are no barriers. You just walk through. You transact in half a second, less than 1 second, and you can have a multitude of passengers walking simultaneously through that checkpoint, being it border control, being it boarding process, or whatever process you need to implement to check on the passenger's ability to be accepted.
Thank you. Thanks, Miguel. Maybe a question for Najib. You know, I mean, we have been talking about how to use data, information that we collect, I mean, be it biometric information, things we capture along the customer journey for improving customer experience. Now, your focus in Skywards, of course, is loyalty to a large extent, right? Which is not necessarily the same. I mean, it's strongly correlated, obviously, but where do you see the difference, and what is specific about using data for loyalty initiatives? And could you give us a couple of examples of what you're doing in Skywards at the moment, and maybe what the plans are?
Sure, Doug. You guys hear me well? Okay, so first of all, I think it's, from a loyalty perspective, loyalty is won or lost on the customer experience itself. So all my colleagues here who are from the touch points are the ones who make us look good from a loyalty perspective, because they handle the customers and they deal with them, etc. And anyway, equipping them with the right data is extremely important for them to recognize our customers, and especially in times of disruptions, and how we recover from disruption is very, very important for them to know who they're dealing with as well. But if I look at loyalty in particular, it's something that came up in Frank's presentation earlier. Personalization is extremely important for us to gain that loyalty and to make the engagement with our customer very relevant. We do talk to our customers a lot through offers, talking about the program, and the program is getting more and more complex. So it's very important for us to put the relevant information in front of them. I'll give you a couple of stats. When we moved into more personalization, again, leveraging data for us, we've seen our click-through and open rate on email triple by just doing, like, I'll take specifically statements for the monthly statements we send to our customers. The fact that we personalize these statements ensures that we have a proper open rate and click-through rate. Again, this is 3 times what we used to have, or what an average email coming from Emirates would have in terms of rate. In terms of customers coming to the website, and I'll take that example in particular, roughly speaking, 2/3 of the revenue on Emirates Online comes from actually Skywards members. So these are people that we know that are coming to our website and shopping with us. Skywards members convert 4 times more than non-Skywards members coming to the website. Most of it because they know the product, they're coming there to shop, etc. But we put extra, work and effort from our side to personalize that engagement when they're coming to the website and shopping for flights. So when people are logged in, we know who they are. We have information about, of course, their loyalty in terms of, where did they redeem their miles, where did they earn their miles, but also we have an information on the flight load itself. So basically, by putting targeted offers on, let's say, weaker flights, and these days it's very seldom that we have weaker flights. The flights are pretty full. But if you think about us going to destination where they have multiple frequencies, we would like to switch sell people from the flight that has the highest load to the flights that have lower loads. We also want to upsell people when they're coming to that flight to taking them from a saver fare, for example, to a flex fare or to the higher cabin. So we put targeted offers based on the knowledge we have about the customers and the knowledge that we have about the flight to drive conversion on the website. And we've seen 1 percentage point extra coming specifically from these, what I call loyalty tactics, that leverage the data that we have in real time to be able to ensure that we have conversion on the website. So that's one example of the use of data for personalization and how we're driving metrics, commercial metrics, in support of, by leveraging data.
Well, thanks, Najib. Now, I think all of us as the data and analytics or AI practitioners, I think we love bringing in as much data as we can about our customers, get it into our platform, store it, process it, do all kinds of things with it, usually with a business objective behind that. But then in reality, of course, we have quite severe legal and regulatory constraints. So not everything that is possible and is doable and might have a business benefit is allowed. To give an example, when it comes to collecting and processing data, of course, we're all pretty much subject to the European regulation, GDPR. There is emergent AI regulation at the moment in several countries. It's either already released or in the making. So, as I said before, not everything that's possible and maybe has a business benefit we should be doing. Now, we all, I assume, or I'm quite convinced, we go to great lengths in order to comply with these laws and regulations. We do whatever we can in order to be compliant. Nevertheless, there are also ethical considerations, and that is maybe a question more on the academic side. I mean, for Niels, I mean, what are your views on this? Because what are the main risks, maybe also opportunities, but what are risks and limitations of what one should be doing with data, in particular when it comes to machine learning, AI, and these kind of things?
Yes, thank you so much. So that happens to be my main area of research at the university. So I look at how do we train private and trustworthy or reliable machine learning models. Because let us remember one thing. Today's AI is driven by data. So you need a lot of data, but you don't just need a lot of volume, you also need a lot of quality, high quality data. Ideally, high quality, real time, very personalized information at times. Now, very often this data, acquiring this data, is the first step, but processing it, storing it, and so forth, there's a lot of problems associated to that with the confidentiality of that data. That can be, let's say, from a private perspective, like your and my data, for example, but it can also be from a proprietary perspective. We don't want to reveal, let's say, some internal data. So the question really is, how do we process, how do we collect and process that data in a way so that we can get the best possible machine learning model or service out of it in the very end? Now, to the threats. There are a lot of threats with current AI systems on revealing private information. For example, with ChatGPT, you can extract information that it has been trained on. Now, that information is public, so we don't really care about it. But once you take ChatGPT or any of these large machine learning services and you fine-tune it on private data, you can still extract this data from the model. And that can be a huge problem Because imagine there's personalized data or there's emails or something like that that can be extracted from the model. So what we do in research currently is we're looking at, I don't want to say tomorrow's technology, but technologies that can help to reduce the privacy risk while still maintaining a very accurate model. So keywords here for the experts in the room would be differential privacy, homomorphic encryption, secure multi-party computation. So all of these technologies, they're not yet deployed. You probably haven't even heard of them, but they might become tomorrow's technology. And confidentiality is just one aspect of what we call trustworthy machine learning. Another aspect that's very interesting to look at is algorithmic bias. So what if the machine learning model that we train looks at data based on, like, from a very biased perspective, maybe because we have some overrepresentation of specific people's data in the training data set, and then the machine learning model makes wrong or what we call unfair predictions to that about like people in that subgroup. This is still an unsolved problem, but there's a lot of research interest going into that. And we today, at this point in time, we haven't found a solution, but we always look at trade-offs and how we can get better at that. And all of these technologies, emerging technologies, I want to say, are very important and interesting to look at. And you'll hear a lot more about them in the future.
Right, thanks, Niels. Maybe a follow-up question for you, Miguel, because I mean, you're collecting biometric data, primarily images of people's faces. You use them for facial recognition. Now, in principle, you could also use them, and maybe you're doing this, that's what I'm interested in. You can use them in order to extract sentiment data. You can extract, is a customer or is a passenger happy when going through a gate, unhappy, kind of anxious. Are these capabilities in place? Is that something you're discussing, working on? How do you see this?
Yes, every start and process that the passenger takes, preparing his trip, traveling to the airport, his experience at the airport, boarding into an airplane, is for most of the passengers a very stressful experience. Many of those are even very stolen moments, right? If you board an airplane and all your data is being checked, or if you walk through border control, many ideas pass through your mind. What happens if, and if, and if, and if? So the behavior of the passengers in that moment is not natural. You need to compensate that by having the touch points adapt to the behavior of the passenger, not the other way around. So that is something that is intrinsic to the development that we have been doing together with Emirates for many, many years. So it is an adaptive thing. In terms of processing data, it is important that in that adaptation, for example, a seamless project, yes, a seamless passenger transaction, you don't have access in the first seconds, split seconds, of the origin of the identity of the passenger. How do you adapt that split second in something that makes the passenger feel comfortable? So there's a lot of technologies, a lot of academic works in place, which we try to influence and bring into our product. One of them, for example, is the chameleon effect. The chameleon effect is if you are standing in front of another person with which you talk to, as that person is moving and articulating with you, you are actually adapting yourself to that behavior as well. So you can implement avatar technologies by facilitating that environment, by making the passenger feel more comfortable for that specific transaction. And it can be as simple as changing the aspect of the avatar to the ethnicity of the passenger. It can be as simple as adapting the language or trying to adapt the language to the passenger from which you don't have any information yet. So these are little steps that we are trying to implement to facilitate, to bring the stress levels down. It is in those split seconds that you define the experience of the passenger through that touch point. That's a little bit the way we are doing it and implementing it in these days.
All right, thanks for sharing this, Miguel. want to come back to one point, one of the last points in Frank's presentation, which I really like. I'm very passionate about this myself, which is all the different challenges of doing machine learning AI. And it doesn't really matter whether you do it for improving customer experience, for loyalty, for operational efficiency. I mean, just to quote a couple of numbers, I mean, they usually float through the internet. Gartner usually tells you that 87% of all AI initiatives basically end up in pilot and POC stage. They never make it into business operation, technical production or business operation. The RAND Corporation has just released very similar figures, around 80%. So the failure rate is staggering. It's absolutely staggering when you look at this, in particular in view of the investment that's being made. And now you elaborated already a little bit on the challenges which are there and kind of where you see the main problems. And they're sometimes organizational, they can be technical, they can sit in the data and so on. So I want to address that question to Najib. I mean, where do you and your teams, where do you run into problems in doing these a little bit more sophisticated things in order to improve customer loyalty and customer experience? From your experience, where do you get stuck or where do the real challenges sit?
Yeah, so I mean, I looked at what Frank presented, and it's really it's staggering, really, in terms of the challenges we have. The one that we face mostly is around the volume of data we're talking about. So just give you an idea, from a Skywar's perspective, we have 100,000 earned transactions a day and 115 million miles redeemed every day. So you could just like see the scale that we're talking about and the type of data. And then when we took the program from just being a frequent flyer program, we moved away from just talking about flight transactions to actually everyday transactions. So we have a platform like Skywar's Everyday where it's people, we interact with retail and we engage members around retail, etc. So just think about the amount of data we're talking about here. And how, and by the way, on top of it is all the unstructured data that you talked about earlier in terms of sentiments, feedback we're getting from the customers, and etc. And how do we harness all of this so that we stay relevant when we're talking to the customers? Because when I talk about personalization, if you're wrong and if you're putting the wrong offer, you're turning away a customer. So exactly. It goes, you know, both ways. You have to do it right. You have to harness the data. If you, on top of the complexity and the sheer volume of data, I've talked about an example where we use the data in real time. So latency on the website can cause the reverse outcome from having conversion to having people really leaving your website. So ensuring that you have technology that works well, that allows you to have minimum latency is important as well. So harnessing complex data coming from different sources, sometimes inconsistent data, and how do we make that available and usable, and then having the right technology so that you minimize latency. And the third thing that has been touched upon by the panelists here is ensuring that you're not turning away customers by being too intrusive and really respecting the privacy in some way or fashion. So you have these three elements that you need to have in mind that creates that complexity. And of course, Skywar's cannot do it on their own. We're merely the users of all of this. We've got to work with, you know, stakeholders like yourself, Dirk, and your team, technology as well, for us to be able to make sure that this is working and working well, and we're getting the outcomes that I've just talked about earlier.
Yeah. Thanks, Najib. Then maybe a follow-up question for you, Frank, since you presented this already in quite some detail, your views, which I largely subscribe to. Any further details? But then the follow-up question really is, what does it actually apply for your workforce? Because you mentioned these challenges, and doing these kind of things in a large organization requires typically that you need new skills in your labor force. I mean, be it on the business side, on the user side, or be it in the teams actually building and delivering these kind of solutions. Could you share your experiences with us?
On the skills of the organization?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think skills is only one problem, but maybe I would like to start with the governance. It's not just the skills, it's also governance problem, because normally we are used to govern with a very business case mindset what we do. So that means we believe we can predict what the outcome is. And it is not easy as an organization to convince CFOs and others that there is now a domain in which we need to work completely different, because we cannot predetermine exactly what the outcome is when we start investigating a set of data, and if we try a POC. And as I said, sometimes these POCs can be quite elaborate or expensive. So it starts with trying to instill a different mindset top down, where yes, there need to be business cases, but in the world of AI and data, there need to be enough flexibility to try things and to have the hurdles very, very low. And then, of course, it's all about putting a team together. I believe, or the way we work at Etihad these days, we try to work almost exclusively in Scrum teams. And the beauty about Scrum teams is you can put together in a Scrum team people from different organizations and different disciplines and different skills, ideally co-located. I find this the most powerful way of working. I have software engineering, data science, product owner, Scrum master, and whatever you need, depending on the use case, in a team, maybe several teams, and then a train. I think this is very powerful. That's how we work, and I think it works quite good. But it's all about, for our people as well, it's learning. You can not only hire people fresh that come and bring the skills, you can do that with some, but you need to train a lot, your own people as well. So we run hackathons, we run training programs with our partners, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, you name it. We do smaller experiments. We have an internal ideation platform where people can submit ideas, and we work on them, we funnel them down and we work on it. So I think it's a multifaceted challenge, starting with the governance, have the right team in place, and then creating the right backlog. And I'm not claiming we have mastered the challenge, but I guess if you practice and if you get better and if you learn, I think more and more, the throughput gets better.
Yeah. Can I just add to Frank, because he talks about, of course, the technology side, but bringing these teams together. I want to talk from the user side of AI, if you will, and just maybe give an example also of the use, let's just say, of data in our business as well, in the loyalty business. We don't think about it, but I've talked about the scale of engagement that we have from a transaction perspective, earn or burn transactions. So fraud for us is and as the currency is becoming more and more ubiquitous, a word that Frank used in his presentation, we really need to watch all these transactions happening and ensure that we're protecting our members as well from fraud. So we've moved a few years back from just having a reactive fraud organization into having a proactive fraud organization that is much more forensic driven, if you will, and that very analytical in their mindset. Of course, supported by technology, but that analytical mindset is extremely important now that we have in our teams. That's one example. The second is one where we're used to actually, and you talked about the POCs, failings, etc. Doing things and doing it right in the first time around. We've got to get to a point now with the use of AI, etc., where we have this iterative mindset, where we're trying things and we're improving as we go. I mean, that's again the principles of AI, and you have to embrace them in some way or fashion as well. So I think we're really looking at now, people coming to the workforce, or to our staff who have this broader tech literacy, AI literacy, analytical mindset, and this iterative mindset as well. And then, of course, we're training people to do so, but we're also onboarding new people that come with this new mindset as well.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Very critical, actually, also from my experience. Leads me actually to another question for Niels. Because when you look at what's happening in machine learning, AI, data science more generally, research, this is predominantly at the moment confined, I would say, to the academic world, and then the very, very large digital hyperscalers, I mean the Googles, the Microsofts of this world, they even have their own research departments, they are at the forefront, and also it's in many cases cost prohibitive for smaller companies. And I wouldn't necessarily call an airline a small company, but it's just too expensive for us to, for instance, develop our own Gen AI models. Nevertheless, we are dependent on upskilling our own resources, not just on the technical side, but also when it comes to the general understanding, what is AI, what can it do, what are the risks, upskilling our leadership team, and also in many cases then recruiting real experts, data scientists. I mean, how do you see the future of, or potential future of collaboration between the academic world and, I would say, large but not humongous corporations like airlines? How do you see this evolving?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So first of all, I think we have to look at the landscape that we have today. So AI is a game of talent, right? Like the people developing AI models today aren't the 1% of the best students, they're the 0.1% of the 1%, right? So what you want to do if you want to play with, engage in that game, is to hire talent. And to hire talent, you need critical mass. Now, let's say for the UAE or here specifically, that mass, once you have it, like I don't want to advertise, but the university, for example, is one such initiative where we get mass and we try to get students together and we educate them and we train them so that they are able to participate in building large models. Now, for the leaders in the field, which right now are, I think that's quite obvious, like Google, Microsoft, like very large companies that put out foundation models, they have, all of them have research labs. All of them, like if you look at who developed like the transformer architecture, which underlies many of the advancements in machine learning models, it's these very big labs. So if you want to be a leader, you have to have research. Because let us not forget that transformers didn't just come from nothing. It came from years and years of a lot of research. So the question for companies that don't have these, let's say, dedicated research departments are, I think, two very important questions. One is, how do you attract talent? Because you want people that are able to adopt and develop and tailor these solutions to your applications. So that's number one. And the second, of course, is how do you apply that, right? Like there are some use cases that we don't look at in research, right? So you have to be on top of the game in research in order to know what can and cannot be done. So that permeates every area of development. So it's privacy, what we talked earlier, but it's also personalization. It is content generation, like with Notebook LM, the demo that Frank showed earlier. A lot of these areas, they are now becoming possible. So the leaders in the field, they hire that talent who can then enable and apply it to their products. So I think the collaboration between academia and companies is mutually beneficial. It has to be that companies, let's say, even if they don't have their own research departments, work closely together with research, especially in a time where we get one breakthrough after another, which we're still in. So I think it can be mutually beneficial, but it has to be a collaboration, especially for companies that don't have their own research initiatives.
Yeah, and I guess most companies, even the big ones, don't have their own research teams in this kind of field. We may have specialists, but this is actually quite important. Thanks a lot for that. Now, before we run out of time, like in any conference, and it doesn't really matter what conference you go to, it can be about medieval English literature, you have to talk about generative AI. There's no way around this at the moment. There is an enormous hype about this in the industry, obviously, and this is also reflected in this enormous investment that's being made by infrastructure companies, but also by specialized companies building these kind of capabilities, training Gen AI models, and so on. Now, when you look at it as a practitioner, as a data scientist, you say in machine learning based on deep neural networks, I mean, it's not that fresh new. I mean, it's kind of has been around for quite a while. I mean, the perceptron was developed in the 40s of the last century. Deep learning had its breakthroughs at the beginning of the millennium. So at least conceptually, it's not that new. I mean, it's something, but nevertheless, everybody has the impression it's something completely new. It's a game changer, right? So the opinions you find when reading about this, when studying this yourself, also in academia, they range from, well, it's nothing special. It's a probabilistic parrot, which also hallucinates every once in a while, sometimes funny, sometimes dangerous, sometimes even very, very nicely about putting an Emirates tail on an Etihad aircraft. So that's one view which is quite extreme. It just is extremely limited. It's a nice computer. It's a natural language interface in the computers all the way to it's an absolute game changer, will transform the world. We're on the path to AGI, artificial general intelligence. Start again with you, Niels, more on the research side. I mean, because you're on the forefront of research for these topics. What's your personal view? I mean, where do you see this, and where do you see this going over the next couple of years?
Right. Okay, so that is about, is, like, let's say generative AI or in general AI a hype, or is it something that actually has benefits? I think you can separate that into two views. And one is you have a short-term and a long-term impact. Now the short-term impact, I think we've seen a lot of demonstrations. We see that there are areas where we can use today's AI very, very well. So for example, that is content generation. So you're looking at videos that are now produced in high quality that are nearly indistinguishable from content that is real, captured with the camera. So these tasks, AI isn't just useful, it's also very good. Another area, for example, what we saw just now is notebook LM, like podcasting, retrieving information. What current AI allows us to do, so what people in my area often refer to current AI as, is like a way to, like a semantic database in some sense, where you train it on, let's say, all of the internet, all of the data that you can possibly get a hold of, and then the LM or any chatbot allows you to query that data with a completely new way of querying it, where it can relate different concepts it has seen in the data and put them together to create something that is seemingly new, or at least unseen. Now, the short-term impact of this, I think, undoubtedly, we can already see that it is gaining a lot of traction. There are products coming out that use AI, and it also, like, there are areas where we can apply today's AI models that aren't consumer-based, but let's say in medical science, right? Like the Nobel Prize, what was it won for? Right, like protein folding. So AI definitely has uses in the short term. Now the long term, I think that's very debatable. I don't think there's a consensus. I think it has polarized a lot. The question here is, how close are we to what we call AGI, artificial general intelligence? And I think it's like anybody who's used systems like ChatGPT or Anthropic or other systems, they sometimes do very silly mistakes, like things that a human wouldn't get wrong, right? Like I can ask it some very trivial questions, I changed the phrasing of the question, and it gives me a wrong answer. So it's correct sometimes, it's incorrect other times, but it's incorrect in a way that makes it unreliable, right? So the question that we are looking at in research is what is the potential of this technology when we scale it up? So the scaling part is typically taken on by companies, but the research part of new architectures, new algorithms, like let's say a better way of producing data, like synthetically generated data and so forth, there's a lot of initiatives like going forward. Now, if I want to be conservative, I have to say we're nowhere close to AGI, right? That is probably the realistic conservative view, but that doesn't mean that AI doesn't yet have a lot of unlocked potential, especially because it allows us to tap into so much more data and process so much more data in a completely new and different way. So I think that new tool in the box is why there's so much investment and interest around this topic. It just didn't exist before.
All right, thanks for sharing your views. Just to wrap this up in the interest of time, very short related question to the other three panelists. Where do you see Gen AI in 1 or 2 sentences? Main opportunities, main risks for your specific area? You can start maybe with Miguel.
Well, generative AI is not within the scope of what we do, but AI itself is an important topic. Connected to biometrics, it is a game changer. We are solving all the most difficult passenger processing aspects that you can find in the airport process. We can bring them away from the airport. I think that's a big plus where we can contribute for enhancing and creating the experience more positive. The challenge is one of them, which Frank already raised, is change management. How do you adapt, how you change the operation of the airports over time? You don't get seamless, you don't get biometric from one day over the other. It's a gradual process. How do you run both processes simultaneously until you are fully biometrically enabled? And once you clear all the barriers, you still have to deal with exceptions. How do you deal with exceptions in an environment, in an airport, which has no barriers? That's a little bit the challenge I put into this session here today.
All right, thanks. Frank?
Just briefly, I think Gen AI is quite big for the airlines. I think it's here to stay. It will change a lot, our interaction over time. And I believe it's going to really have a massive impact. I also believe in 5 years from now, we will not talk about Gen AI all the time anymore, because it's become part of every end user device, part of every website, a mobile app. It's just there, but I think it will change substantially the way we are working. As I said, we're slow in adoption, so until it has proliferated all our backend system and we really understand how we compute everything, it will take time, but I do believe this really has a major impact, to the point where our processes will change, our organizations will change. But as I said, we're a bit slow in adopting, but it will have a massive impact on us.
Thanks. Last but not least, Najib.
Yeah, from my side, a couple of practical cases, use cases. So one which is mature right now is the one that your team is working on with ECAS, Emirates Airport Services, in terms of helping our agents go through manuals, tons of information to be able to answer questions. Actually, from a Skywards perspective, we're very interested in this because the program is getting more and more complex, and we want to have our agents facing the customers, either a retail contact center or at check-in, be able to answer some of these questions coming from members, and again, cut through the complexity of what Skywards has to offer. That's the first use case. The second one, which will mature, I think, over time, that we're working on right now, is I talked about the sentiments coming from members. We're capturing them through different sources, whether it's retail contact center, on board, or just customer feedback coming through our customer affairs department, to be able to synthesize all this information in a way, categorize it, and understand where the pain points are. And if you allow me, a third use case, but it is very personal. So this summer, I was introduced to a custom GPT applications out of ChatGPT by Jake here. Jake, you can take a seat. I'm mentioning you. And I've went in and created a custom GPT for myself. So I gave GPT all my interviews, transcripts of all my interviews of the past 3 years. This is public information, obviously. Ask this to only look into our media relations, press releases, etc., and basically trained it over the summer on a number of questions around Skywards. And to tell you, 48 hours ago or so, I received 20 questions from a journalist in the UK, and I'm preparing for an interview that's coming that will focus on the UK and US. I gave ChatGPT, this custom version, the 20 questions. I can tell you, it is, when you say about, being either impressive or hallucinating, so exactly this is the number. 16 questions were responded more than accurately in my tone, because this is based on my interviews. So it was exactly in my tone. I could have even actually asked it to respond in Tunisian Arabic, and it could have done it too. But it was in proper English, better than my English. But again, in my tone, 16 questions were answered absolutely correctly. 2 questions were hallucination. I was asking it about financial presence, co-brand credit cards in the UK, and it actually mixed up co-brand credit cards with financial partners. So it was wrong. It was hallucinating. And 2 questions were subjective questions, because the journalist was asking me about the next destination I want to go to, and then which airline I look up to after, of course, after Emirates and Etihad. So, and I was absolutely the 2 answers, and I can share them later offline, was amazing, because I didn't think of it that way. It tied it back to Skywards. and gave me an answer that basically I'm going to be using in the upcoming interview. So you'll know, the upcoming interview is all ChatGPT, so like the podcast from your CEO, this is the way I'm going. But you need to train it, and I trained it all summer to be able now to just kind of relate to it. So,
and training and prompt engineering and actually retraining the models is quite a lot of effort. That much I can tell you. Yeah. No, thanks a lot to all the panelists for sharing your very insightful views and opinions. We're at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much indeed, gentlemen. We look forward to reading the interview. The GPT interview. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very quick break before our next panel. And again, just a quick reminder, if you aren't here in the auditorium and you are in the foyer, again, to keep the noise down. It's actually very difficult to hear when you're up on stage. We'll see you back here in 2 minutes. Thank you. I know I told you a small white lie there and said we were starting in 2 minutes, but we are starting right now. What we're going to be doing now is our second panel discussion of the day. We're going to be talking combining the power of XR and Gen AI to revolutionize aviation workflows. With that, I would love you to please welcome our panel members to the stage. First up, we have Chair Professor of XR at Manchester Metropolitan University, Timothy Chung. We have Executive Director of Microsoft Solutions in the UAE, Tarek Halawani. Senior Vice President for HR Operations and Systems of Emirates, Amira Al-Ahwadi. And the Director of the GCC at Whoop, Stephen Muller. Your moderator for this panel is the Senior Vice President of IT Production Delivery at Emirates, Jake Sims. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel, thank you so much.
Good morning, or good afternoon, actually, everybody. Thank you for waiting. We are now in, I think, safe to say, the home stretch of a great 3-day event on the future of aviation. And I'm hoping we can tie it all together. We've got 4 unique perspectives on the stage, and we're going to hear from them. And we're going to talk about 2 technologies that in their own right are amazing and have a huge potential. That, of course, is extended reality and generative AI. But what we're going to ask the panel members to do, if possible, is what happens when those 2 technologies converge together, and does that make the sum greater than the individual parts? So we've heard a lot in the last 2 days or last 3 days about the growth of the industry, the growth of passenger demand, which is expected to double by 2040 to 8 billion passengers. We've talked about technology and AI in terms of what it's doing in operations and engineering. And today the focus specifically is around people and what those technologies can do for the future workforce, which is one of the most important fuels for helping us achieve those growth targets in the future. So I wanted to start off with a simple question around these 2 technologies, but I wanted to get each of your individual perspectives on the first time you had a wow moment and you knew there was something special or something different about these technologies and that the potential was huge. Professor Young, okay. I want to start with you, and I'm going to ask you just to define XR or extended reality to make sure we're all on the same page on that as well.
Right, okay. So I think people talking about XR, but there are various different terminology like AR, VR, MR, XR, or spatial computing, but actually it's pretty similar. It's mainly driven by the big company, like AR is when Pokemon Go used, and VR is the and XR and mixed reality, Microsoft, all these companies are using this terminology, and we came to know this technology. But it's very similar. But one of the most 2 different things is AR is you can see real world, and the VR is in the virtual world. And one of the key wow moments when I met this technology, the first one is a Minority Report, which you will remember the film, which now you can have a very interactive screen and advanced technology, you can actually communicate with them. And second one must be Google Glass, where using wearable technology, you can interact with the real world. Probably I'm one of the first kind of person who did develop Google Glass for museum in Manchester. So I think those are the 2 like a moment. And also more recently, when it comes to AI, like a robot, they recommend the Apple for the things which human can eat. So those are the 3 moments which I think this technology might have a huge impact on our society and our lives. Okay?
Thank you. Just to keep it fresh, we're not going to go in order, but I'm going to go to Stefan. Why don't you tell us down on the end your first wow moment, and then we'll come back.
So for Whoop, I don't know how many of you wear a Whoop. Can you put your hands up if you do? All right, not bad, not bad. On Whoop, we measure strain, we measure recovery, we measure sleep. And one of the really interesting, relatively new features that we have is called Whoop Coach, which is effectively an AI that recommends how you should spend your day based on all these health and data metrics that you receive. So you would wake up in the morning, you would check your recovery, you would check your strain score, you would click on the Whoop Coach, and the Whoop Coach would tell you Stefan, you slept amazing. Today's a day that you can push. Maybe consider doing a 20-minute run. Maybe consider doing a little bit of meditation. Maybe consider doing a cold shower or something along those lines. And it's basically taking the guesswork out of how I should spend my days from a well-being standpoint. And this is kind of from a Whoop standpoint, the first time where I was like, this is real, and this is something that's really going to transform the way that we look at wearable technology.
Thank you. Amira, first wow moment.
When I first got a brief on the IXR, the first thing came to my mind was the opportunity to have a fully immersed experience for the onboarding for our new joiners, especially the ones, the majority of our new joiners they are young and they come from diverse areas. So they have a bit of anxiety before they move to the UAE or to new job. So this platform will help us get them connected and engaged with us before even they join us, before they land in Dubai. So that was the wow moment that I had when I first heard about IXR.
And maybe just a quick follow-up to put it in context. How many employees are we bringing on board every month across the group?
On average, we have 1,000 new joiners joining the Emirates group every month.
Incredible amount, right? And I think that huge opportunity for the technology.
Yes.
Tarek, last certainly not least, what's your perspective and your wow moment from XR and generative AI?
So my wow moment was probably my first experience leveraging Copilot, Microsoft Copilot at work probably 12 months ago. So I was part of the early adoption program, super excited like everyone else of what is this new Gen AI, how does it help me personally at my work. And I remember I had a day with a packed agenda and I had a sudden urgent meeting I had to attend in Abu Dhabi. My first reaction was I need to call my assistant, cancel my meetings. But then I realized that I've heard of this new feature introduced in Copilot for intelligent recap of meetings where I can assign Copilot to attend on my behalf all my team's meetings and then send me a summary of those meetings with suggested follow-up actions and follow-up meetings. So I decided to go and use that. And that was really a wow moment for me, getting computers to understand humans and to understand my language and get my work done was the industry dream for like 50 years. And that moment I felt we're closer than ever to get that realization.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Now I want to just turn attention to workforce, because that's what we said the theme was going to be today, and what do these technologies mean to the workforce. And just a few points, I mean, you might be able to find out there in terms of research, the global population is aging. Birth rates across the globe are reducing, so there's less talent coming into the workforce. Those are some macro trends that are happening. And then likewise, we're seeing with the introduction of technology, the expectations of younger generations is technology plays a much bigger role in life, whether it's generative AI or social media or the convergence of those, or gamification with video games and that sort of thing. So we know that there's going to be a competition for talent in the future, and we know that the preferences of the future generations are going to be quite different. Unfortunately, I'm not part of the future workforce, I can acknowledge that. But the next generations that come will have completely different expectations of what they want out of work, how long they want to work, and it's going to be up to us to design something, and technology, I think, is going to play a role there. So I want to understand, we're talking about generative AI and extended reality. What do those two technologies specifically mean for the future workforce? What can we expect? What benefits are they going to provide based on the evolution? I want to start with the sort of academic forward-looking view. And Timothy, can you give us your insights?
Okay, I think we are we're in a very interesting time, and because technology historically influenced our society. But when you see this kind of two powerful technology like extended reality, which visualization is becoming much more powerful, and somehow you could experience something we couldn't experience. And AI is the game changer. Clearly, many country, many company, many people, they start to see the real kind of a benefit of AI. But I am interested in, particularly when these two technologies combine together, is even more powerful. For example, when it comes to workflows, training and education is very, very important, and one of the top industry when it comes to application of these two technology. It's most powerful. But when you look at, when we think about training and education, we used to do these kind of things through the reading books and very traditional way. However, using these two combined technology now, we can collect the data and how they are training, and also through the sensor, and we could create the big data and actually how they are doing, and also we analyze the patterns of how they are doing, okay? And then we can use that for future training, more personalized, more context specific, and that kind of training is possible through this technology. And also, XR technology is really useful for the visualization, but AI's analysis means when these two technologies combined together is one of the most effective and powerful training is possible for training for future talent, which they are already exposed this technology naturally, okay? And also, sometimes it's quite difficult to train them when it comes to engineering and technical side, but they can meet in the virtual space, okay? And they can discuss, they find the problems, and that's much easier and cost-effective way of training and future talents. And I think future generation will expect this kind of visualized and more technology-enhanced training and education. So I think this is probably one of the biggest kind of potential area when these two technologies combine together when it comes down to training and education of future talents. Okay?
Thank you. I think training and education, obviously a huge opportunity there. And I want to take your answer, and I also want to build on what Frank Meyer presented earlier today when he acknowledged that adoption of these technologies and change management can be quite a significant issue. Tarek, I wanted to get your view from Microsoft. Microsoft, I think everyone will be aware, is a huge proponent of generative AI and their partnership with OpenAI with their Copilot product suite, producing AI, building it into their products, promoting it. We know you sell it. Can you tell us, are you using it internally for your own workflows, for your own efficiency? And if so, what's that experience been like? And have you run into some of that adoption challenge that Frank discussed this morning?
Right. And honestly, we're still going through this learning cycle along with our customers on how to get the real value of AI to every employee, to every business. Technology is probably one half of the equation, but the other half, and the more important one, is adoption change management. And how can we, because it's a cultural change, and it's a massive undertaking for any organization to lead with this AI-first culture. We are all used to do things in a certain way, and we can try new things, but we can easily fall back to the conventional way if it doesn't get us basically what we expect. Our own experience in terms of rolling Copilot, and I can talk about the key principles that we followed, at least in our adoption program. First of all, I think it's basically it's a leadership decision, and we wanted all the leaders and the people managers in the organization to role model how they think AI first. And we built basically a massive leadership and managers community to make sure that they are equipped to think AI first, so that basically the message cascades around the organization. So the tone at the top is super important, and that's the first thing we focused on. The second thing, speaking of basically adoption change management, there is no one size fits all. We spoke about productivity as a gain. We could train all employees on how to use it within your daily routine for emails, for Outlook, but it's way more than that. So we needed to go and understand the roles and the personas of the employees in HR, in finance, and see what are the prompts, what are the use cases where those roles or personas can unleash more value beyond just the daily work routine. And we started to customize basically the learning and skilling program to a persona base, to a department profile. And we built some small communities within each department so that they can exchange learnings and exchange the prompts where they get the value out of AI. And the third principle probably to highlight here is we were very conscious not to make it a tool for the most privileged and the most senior employees only. We didn't want to create that divide in the organization where only if you're an executive leader or a manager, you get access to AI and you get Copilot and a ChatGPT Enterprise or whatever it is. So it was a decision at the top that every knowledge worker across the globe is going to get AI because this is a new way of doing work in the office. So those are the things that we followed, and I think we continue to learn with our customers in the journey.
Can I just probe a little bit? Do you have any specific statistics or anything you can share in terms of productivity, or are you still in the early phases of discovery and monitoring?
So, and by the way, this reminds me with another point I'd like to mention. We made sure also, I think, this is something, it's not a step change, it's a leap change. And that's why we equipped all the leaders and the managers with dashboards to measure usage and adoption. So we went ahead, we activated the technology for all employees. But beyond that, we wanted to see who's really using it and what value he's getting. Our internal measures range from 10 to 12% productivity gain for the average employee who's using it. Keep in mind, ability to write an email in 30 seconds that would take average people 5 minutes is a major gain. And I write basically 20, 30 emails a day. Or summarizing a financial report that takes me usually 2 hours to read, but now I can have a summary in 5 minutes is a major unlock. So our current estimations, we're around the 12%, at least this is the global average. Some orgs, my org is higher than that. I'm happy with this, but that's where we are today.
Great, thank you. I want to stay on learning and development and workforce, but let's talk about workforce and aviation because it's really quite relevant to us and the team. So Mira, I wanted to get maybe your viewpoint on what experiences have we had, what are we trying at Emirates Group, and what have you seen so far as some of the challenges in that adoption?
Okay, we all know that at Emirates we are at the forefront of adopting any new technologies, and IXR is one of them. We are currently working on developing an immersive reality platform powered by AI and VR. We have 2 areas that we are working on. The first one is human resources area, the onboarding experience, and the other one is in service delivery for the cabin crew training, which we are working closely with our colleague Hiba. So both the cases aiming to have, for example, for HR, it's to improve the experience of the new joiner before they join Emirates. We want them to be engaged with us, connected to us, and make them feel part of the Emirates extended family even before they land in Dubai. For the service delivery case, we are trying to enhance and accelerate the operational readiness of the cabin crew once they join the role. So we are seeing lots of opportunities there for process efficiencies in my area, especially with the onboarding experience. And the same will be for a cabin crew. Within the HR domain, we are starting with the onboarding experience, but we foresee that this will be extended to other areas within HR, which is learning and development, recruitment, and other areas as well. In terms of the challenges, the only challenge I see at the moment is with any new technology, things evolve very quickly. And therefore, we have to be very fast and agile to adapt to those changes. That's the only challenge I foresee.
Great, thank you. Now I want to tie it all together, and I want to bring in the wellness element of the workforce. And we have quite a unique workforce in aviation, of course, and I'm going to ask for Stefan, give us your viewpoint on how do we leverage wellness tech, wearables, and is there a role AI has in that? And if you can tie it back to aviation, that's great, but also what else you're seeing in the industry, and what does it mean for the future workforce, and how important do we think wellness, well-being is in that aspect of technology?
Yeah, totally. We at Whoop believe that wearable tech can have a real transformative effect on team performance. So we provide key metrics, like I mentioned previously, like sleep, strain. So strain is output, basically, and recovery. And I think these metrics are super helpful for teams to look at in order to understand what's kind of going on inside, and in order to make informed decisions on to then, create your wellness routine. And when we look at aviation, which for us is relatively new as a business to get involved in, but when we look at aviation, we see employees in very, highly stressed environments. Look at pilots, cabin crew, airport staff, engineers. They also have very irregular schedules. Both of these things, the pressure and the irregular schedules, have a real impact on performance. And I think for us now, when you integrate Whoop into teams effectively, you'll be able to make really informed decisions on how to improve that performance, both on and off the job.
Excellent, thank you. I want to talk now about what is quite a big debate going on, I think, in AI world and generative AI. And as we've seen a lot of the advancements, I think there's been growing concerns over how far will AI go in replacing human jobs. And it's almost become a human versus machine debate. But our theme today is about how do we leverage these two technologies to automate workflows. So from each of you, I wanted to get your perspective, your view on how far do we see these technologies going in automating, and do we see a point where they can fundamentally or completely replace the human in that process, in that workflow, whether it be in the actual tasks of it or potentially even in the decision making? How far can we go? How critically operational are the processes that are potentially in scope for it? Or is there always going to be a red line we would never cross and we'd always leave a human in the mix? And I know the previous panel did talk a bit about hallucinations and other aspects of it. So, I mean, if you could bring it all together and give us your perspective, and maybe we'll go in order.
Okay, yeah. So I think we start to see the robot, okay, is becoming more intelligent and more human look-like. So what they've done in the past was this robot, okay? They are not close to what human can do. But these days, very intelligent robot is start to do lots of work and replacing what humans do, okay? So therefore, I think the concept of Industry 5, which is, cobot, which means how human and robot can work together. But there are clear, role should be allocated. For example, human can do more strategic decision making, and also more like what human-centered issues, problem solving, complex things. And whilst robot or AI can do some simple routine or repeating job. Of course, AI is becoming more intelligent, means they will take more, our humans' job. That is obvious. This is what we see when technology, developed. For example, airline industry in 1960, many people used the telephone and for the booking. But now, once computerized reservation system introduced, many people in the reservation, they lost the job. Only maybe 10 people out of 200, 10 people only keep the job which can manage the computer. but 108 people actually lost the job. So this might happen when the unskilled area. So I think it's really important to like upskilling and reskilling the existing staff. Okay, because one of the most worrying thing is losing job means our life will be affected, damaged. So I think we need to think about in the future how harmony between using kind of what human can do and what robot can do. But fundamental thing is this is our human. Technology is tool, and everything should be human-centered approach. It means we use this technology wisely, responsibly, okay, for humans. Okay, I think that principle, that philosophy is so important for the future, future society. Okay?
Is there upside, though? I mean, is the risk worth the reward?
Sorry?
The risk of taking the human out, would it be worth the potential reward of providing more time?
Of course, I think because at the end of the day, like Tariq mentioned, AI is like a trained program. Means, they will do exactly what they were told to do. And they will make a decision based on the data. Data can be biased. It means they can make a wrong decision. There's no like a human, human-like decision. It can be made in the future, but fundamentally, I think there may be a risk if you just rely on the AI. I think we use AI every day, and everything will be very similar kind of idea, opinions. We just rely on AI. I think this is not good for our human and our society. Okay.
Thank you. Tariq, I know you talked about AI being a co-pilot, but can you elaborate on how far we can take it for automating, and where is that line, and what's the risk and reward?
Look, I think we've seen this before, where every disruptive technology brings out massive opportunity for us, but also a lot of risks. We've seen it in the internet days when it was first introduced, and it was taken by fear by most of the regulators, countries, nations, same as cloud, mobile. And the risk is real. There are some risks, especially when we talk about basically misinformation. We're seeing a lot of deep fakes, AI being used now as a tool for cyber attacks and increasing the sophistication and scale when it lands, in the wrong hands with threat actors. So the risk is real. However, I strongly believe that the opportunity for improving human life is way higher. But with that said, comes a responsibility first on people like Microsoft, all other technology vendors, our competitors as well, policymakers, regulators, to sit down and be grounded on the same core values as we design products. And we are actively participating in building those consortiums in partnership with regulators, country policymakers, at least when it comes to core values like fairness, safety of the digital space, transparency, accountability. There should be no confusion that we need to all design our products to be grounded around those values and build adoption frameworks that basically stay to that truth. And that's continuous work we do wherever we operate. But back to your question, Jake, I still believe the opportunity outweighs the risks. And for sure, when I think about when I think about the notion we have in Microsoft for all our products, we call it co-pilot because we want the human to remain to be the pilot. So we're building all our products to be co-pilots because the human remains to be the pilot. We're not there or thinking in a way where technology replaces the human, but I think we'll be replaced by humans who will use AI technology. I think that's the notion that we have in Microsoft.
Great, thank you. Amira, can you put the Emirates and aviation workforce view on it and how far
And the
can we
HR
take
hat.
it? Oh, and certainly HR representing the workforce, of course.
I don't believe that the technology will replace human, to be honest. On the other side, I believe it will create lots of other opportunities to have new jobs with new set of skills. So, and the advantage out of that it will free up some of our teams in HR, if we take the case of onboarding, to focus on how we can improve the candidate experience, to get them more connected, more embedded in our culture and be part of the family, rather than spending the time and effort doing transactional and administrative processes, which can easily be transformed into the new platform. So to me, I don't think it's a challenge or a risk, but it's an opportunity that we have to grab and identify new roles with new set of skills that are required for the new coming couple of years.
Thank you. Thanks, Samira. And Stefan, bringing the Whoop perspective into it, and of course, I think we need humans in there for wellness tech to be relevant, but maybe we can talk about wellness of AI agents as well at some point. What's your perspective on how far we can take automation, or how far we should with generative AI and XR?
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be a lot simpler than those of my colleagues, because for us, technology is evolving rapidly, but I believe that human oversight is going to remain super critical. When we look at the benefits for Whoop, it's increased automation, it's efficiency, it's consistency, but then when we look at the potential downsides of it, it's job displacement, job uncertainty, right? And I mean job uncertainty in various different ways. So at Whoop, we believe in finding that balance between the two. It's about how can we continue to leverage technology in order to enhance human performance, but how can we embrace, the human mind for things like creativity and for out-of-the-box thinking?
Thanks. I agree. I think there's a huge opportunity if we can unload some of those cognitively heavy tasks that are administrative and allow us to focus on creative aspects and management and decision making. I think we're in a much better position. Now I'm going to ask you one more question before I let everybody sort of off the hook and we conclude. And it's about the future. And you mentioned, Stefan, that technology is advancing quite quickly, and I'll put it in context with a few points so you can think about it, because I'm going to ask you to predict the future, which of course is impossible. But because this is being filmed, we'll have it on record, which is great, and we can look back in a few years. I think technology, Dr. Dirk talked about how AI has been around for quite a while, but now it's got a lot more focus. But it does feel like it has advanced considerably in the last few years. I think everyone's probably had an experience with Alexa or Siri, which hasn't been a great experience, where they're asking it to play a song or something else and it never goes quite right. Now, if you have an interaction with the ChatGPT advanced voice mode, I mean, it's like interacting with another human. It's almost real time. You can ask for different accents. So it has changed fundamentally in 2 years. I'm really hoping the next version of Siri can actually play the right song for me. So that's the hope. Just to give you an idea of how quickly it's changing, I think Frank showed us there's 50,000 AI companies in the mix now, which is huge. Some people refer to it as a Cambrian explosion period of AI. NVIDIA, which is one of sort of the engines of this generative AI revolution, of course makes GPUs, of which all these models are running on, or most models are running on at the moment and being trained on. In January last year, a couple of months after ChatGPT was released to the public, they had a revenue forecast of 26 billion, which was largely in line with their previous year's performance. Now keep in mind, ChatGPT was out, we already knew it sort of had captured the imagination of a lot of people. But even at that point, they didn't recognize how big it was going to be. By the end of last year, their revenue was over 60 billion, more than 100% higher. So even 11 months out, they couldn't predict how quickly it was going to grow. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to predict what it looks like in 5 years, particularly around these two technologies. Firstly, what do you think is the next major innovation to come for extended reality or generative AI, or the two of them together? And then what do you think it means for the workforce in 5 years as well? What's going to be different?
Okay. I am looking at particular like how future will look like, okay? If I can imagine, then maybe wearable, especially smart glass, will be the very, very important. Because if you look at the current XR device, number one, too expensive. Number two, too heavy. And you can't use it in your daily lives. It's quite challenging. But when we use like a smart glass, AR glass, then we could have a much more freedom, okay? And we can do more natural way. And in the future concept, augmented reality can be enhanced. I have published in a recent paper called AR Cloud, which is like a physical version of a metaverse. Means, what you can do in the virtual, digital, or metaverse world, you can do in the real world. So it's like a more personalized, context-aware, and also content is very flexible, okay, and socially engaged. That kind of ideal, kind of much better experience will be available, I think, is through the smart glass. And if the AI is combined there, then even is much more powerful. And the new concept called AI CC, called AI call center, which is now, they are such powerful. There are so many big, good companies are developing engines. Now it's like real time. You talk, and without even less than 0.5 seconds, they answer, very realistic, and it's like a human. You are talking to humans, okay, and also very intelligent. If that kind of things combined together within the AR glass, which is future of the XR, which I believe, then I think that will make a huge impact. However, in my experience, as I mentioned before, 2014, I'm the first one who developed Google Glass for the museum experience. And I believe at the time, in 2 years' time, everybody will use Google Glass, but that was not the case. Even now, it means technology takes time, and also one of the famous monk in Korea said, if you want to sew the clothes, you need a needle, not a spear, okay? And also, if you want to avoid the rain, you need a small umbrella, not the curtain, which spans the entire sky. It means we need to use relevant technology. Technology is there, but our resources are limited. So it means we have to choose right technology to solve the problems. We can't invest every technology everywhere. So I see the future will be much more promising. But however, in reality, we have to very, very conservative, and we have to choose the right technology for the right to solve the problem. Okay, so that's my view.
Thank you. I think we heard there, again, some of the challenges of adoption of his previous technologies. You never know whether it's going to be picked up. Yeah. Tariq, can you give us your view of 5 years and what do these technologies mean for the workforce?
I'll start by saying I'm not a futurist, but I'll try to give it my best shot. So I think we're going to see a lot of AI going to the edge outside of cloud. Today, all these massive parallel data sets and compute intensive clusters that basically power ChatGPT and Copilot sit basically on the back end in basically hyperscale cloud data centers. And I think slowly and gradually we're going to see a lot more intelligence going to every single machine, every single device around us, at home, in the office, in the car. And I do visualize a world where I can talk to every machine around me in my own human language, and I can get things done for me, whether at home or in the office. And I think we're getting to that point. But at the same time, we're seeing that basically AI is creating new business models for so many industries. I don't think healthcare will exist as we know it, or financial services. I could visualize a world where this static mobile application I have from my bank turns to become a financial advisor. where he could see all my transactions, all my purchases, so they could learn about my spend management behaviors. They can make recommendations for me on investment opportunities. They know my interests. I get none of that today, but with AI models and algorithmic trading, we can do a lot of that in banking. We can do a lot of that in healthcare. We're starting to see very promising telemedicine platforms that takes you through a triage system from symptom checking to virtual doctors to reduce 70% of the traffic that goes into emergency rooms in hospitals just to get a prescription. You can deal with all of this through a smart mobile app, a telemedicine platform that is AI powered. So I think we're going to see new business models and new opportunities in every single industry.
Thank you. Amira, what do you think is the next big change in XR and generative AI, and how is it going to
within my domain, with all these technologies, we will be able to provide more personalized, relevant, I would say, and targeted solutions and services to the employees' need. Because today we do, I believe, the one size fits all does not work anymore. So with all these technologies, we'll be able to be very focused in terms of to deliver the services and solutions the employee needs. That's within my area.
And Stefan, can we get your view on wellness and the future of AI and wellness tech and what it means?
Yeah, I don't know about 5 years, Jake, but I'll give you my short-term prediction. For us, I think we're going to see a coming together of wearable technology, XR, and Gen AI, and it's going to create like highly personalized experiences. So for us, what this looks like is real-time coaching in virtual environments and completely curated to that individual. So what we're going to see in these virtual environments as well from a team standpoint is the ability to collaborate together and train together irrespective of where those teams are based. And everything, like all the data will effectively determine what like your perceived effort and is going to be. And we're very excited on where this is going to go. It's something that is quite new to a company like Whoop, but it's something that we're going to continue to integrate, year on year.
Okay, everybody, thank you. That wraps up the panel. Please give a hand of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jake. Thank you, panel. Thank you very much indeed. Super insightful. Ladies, ladies only, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to please remain seated for our closing address. I'll just wait for everyone off stage. Thank you so much to our panel once again. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage for our closing address the Deputy President and the Chief Operations Officer of Emirates, Mr. Adel Al-Reda.
Good afternoon, everybody. I wasn't expected this. So let me start by first expressing on behalf of Emirates and Museum of the Future our appreciation and thanks for all our partners who have supported us from day one until today as a panelist, keynote speakers, and audience. It's been really a great event, but the start of this whole thing started by Museum of the Future when they came to us a few months back and they said, what about if we want to jointly host an event that captures the initiatives and provide a template or an umbrella where everybody can jointly sit together and discuss what are the challenges we want to overcome in the future in aviation. So we welcome the idea, and thanks, Majid, appreciate that. So the first thing that came to my mind, how are we going to do this? We have never done it. And this is really the first time that Emirates gets involved in hosting an event over a period of 3 days involving industrial experts, with our partners who really is the true incubator of the future ideas. So I thought of something. I said, okay, let's engage our youth council members and Emirates with my PA, Mariana. I said, there is a task for you to learn from, but at the same time, really to set a good setup in here. So I must be proudly saying that they have done a great job, and thanks to everybody who really, thank you, who took that challenge on. They worked quite hard. I no doubt put them under a lot of pressure and stress, but they were up to it. Equally, they had quite a lot of partners and colleagues with them, helping them from the Museum of the Future, from Emirates Airline, Corporate Communications, and everywhere we had in the company to make this really a true successful event. So thank you very much for a great job. My own takeout from this whole event, honestly, it shows and proves the magnet of Dubai. Dubai really a true magnet who invite and easily bring in great minds to be together in here. Within a short time, we were able to invite experts from aircraft manufacturers, industry, suppliers, service providers, IT solutions, companies. They're all were wanting to come and support us. Why? Because we have a perfect match. We have Dubai, the brand, we have Museum of the Futures, and we have Emirates Airline. Who doesn't want to support a product like that? So we had a number of workshops. We have items we have displayed with our supplies, and here it shows where the industry is going for, where we are thinking about and seating for some of our business, first class, and what we are thinking toward the entertainment system, the communication systems. So there will be a revolution over the next few years to come. This is showing some element, but you wait to see the product that Emirates is working on. I guarantee you it will shock the industry. So it is something that we're working on, and our supplier are the pillar for us to move forward. But there are a lot of solutions that have been identified in here, and particularly when it comes to using technology, especially when it comes to setting up Dubai and UAE as a base for the enterprise. We need our suppliers in here. We need to be independent, and there is a lot of initiatives that have been highlighted through this workshop, which we will put together, summarize it, and present to our leadership for hopefully execution. So again, thank you very much. It's been really a true good event. But let me ask you one question before I walk out from here. What do you think of the event? Great. Would you like to have it a regular event, or this is a one-off? What is it? A regular event. Okay, that's good to hear. So we'll try to work on that one. So thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
We have another small surprise for you, Mr. Adel. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage Mr. Majid Al-Mansouri, the Deputy Executive Director of the Museum of the Future.
Your Excellency, I don't want to take more from your, I think you summarized exactly what I was going to say, so my comments are going to be much short. But I genuinely think this partnership is what the museum is all about. It's about working with industry experts, industry leaders, bringing together partners from all around the world to come and discuss a future of a specific industry. Aviation has been at the forefront of our lives here in the UAE and in Dubai. And that's all thanks to people like you and leadership and people at Emirates Airline that are bringing everybody together here in Dubai. I personally learned so much in the past few days. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know that are happening behind the scenes, whether it was through cargo and how automation is doing that, how the connection between the different airports and the ports that Emirates Airline and aviation is facilitating here in Dubai in this region. We are creating a better future for humanity. We are creating a better future here in Dubai. And these conversations are happening where they should happen, in Dubai at the Museum of the Future. So I wanted to thank you, Abu Ahmed. I want to thank the team, Mariana. I want to thank Ahmed Matar, Bushra, and the whole team from Emirates for all their support, for all the work. And finally, you now gave us a bigger task of working on developing this for next year and the year after, but that's exactly what we had in mind. I think next year is going to be bigger. Next year is going to be more exciting, inshallah, and we can't wait to work with you on that. We have a very small token of appreciation, just a small trophy. I hope you can potentially keep it in your office. It really has.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
The future.
Thank you, Mohammed. So this
We're
has
missing Mr. Khalfan Bilhol. Send our regards.
He sends his regards as well, and of course, this is obviously has the quotes of the museum. It's very special. Only goes to our special people. So, Mohammed, thank you for pushing us. Thank you for making this event bigger and more exciting than we initially thought of it. So we appreciate all your effort and everything that you've put into this event.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all your team, honestly. Mr. Mono there and the rest of the team, really, it's been quite a challenge for every one of them. But one thing is proved, that they can work together really in a good way and produce a good result. So thanks again for all.
Absolutely.
Shukran, Mr. Adel, Mr. Majid. Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up for Aviation Future Week 2024, just want to take a quick moment to reflect on this incredibly successful event and mirror the words from Mr. Adel and Majid also. Over the past 3 days, we've witnessed a remarkable exchange of ideas, insights, innovations that will truly shape the future of our industry. I also extend our thanks, as we've all said, to yourselves, to all of our speakers, all of our organisers and all of our partners, and a heartfelt thank you to you all for taking the time to be here. Together, we have explored very critical topics: customer experiences, the future workplace, and integration of advanced technologies. We are very excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. My name is Katie Overy, and once again, on behalf of Emirates and the Museum of the Future, thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you very soon. Thank you. Goodbye.